Hey, Zach, before we start, I can't find on the office hours. I couldn't find the link for that the other day that you were talking about. I looked all the way up at the top to see if there was anything pinned, but there's nothing there.
Okay, 1 second, I'll show you.
Okay.
Okay, can you see this, Ryan?
Yes.
Okay, so in learning lemurs, there should be like a thing up here.
Oh, hold on. I didn't
Like
see that.
it's like if you're scrolling, sometimes it hides it, and then if you go like all the way to the bottom and stop scrolling, it'll show it. And it's just
Okay.
like quick links kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I can send you the link directly next office hours if you still can't get to that. But yeah,
Okay.
you should see like helpful links in the 2022 web dev channel
Up
as
at the
well.
top.
Yeah.
Okay.
You've already got that automated reminders for Slack. I don't know if you can edit those, but if you can edit those, we should just drop a link in there.
Yeah, I can do that. Now that our links are maybe stable.
That's true. That's a different problem.
Yeah, but yeah, I think we can do that at this point.
Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. I didn't even know that it was a thing, and I looked back on the email that I got from Claire, and there was nothing about office hours, and I was really confused. So I just tried to jump on the Google Meet, and there was nobody on there. So that's my
Yeah.
bad.
No, you're good. We'll get you on there next week. Okay. I guess we still have a minute. Okay, classes in session. So yeah, I'll try to start on time every time, as long as there's no technical difficulties like last time. Okay, so few things. I've added, you guys can all see VS Code right now, right? Okay, so I've added to our GitHub the curriculum repo. I've added something called additional resources. So people have just been like posting, like mentors and also students have been posting helpful things in Slack. And so I just kind of want to keep a log of that stuff. So I'm going to try and start kind of aggregating things in this additional resources markdown file. So if you're like, I'm caught up, if you're in this amazing position where you're caught up, you've done all the homework and you're like, what else can I do? The additional resources may be something to check out. And I posted this in Slack, but in module 2, I've kind of broken out what I think will be the rough outline for which free code camp courses you need to do for each in between class session. And so for today, you should have done all of these here. And then if you want to get ahead for whatever reason, you can look to what's coming. So the next two in between class homework, there's less specific lessons, but these two concepts are really important. So I kind of lowered the amount of lessons just because I want you guys to really try to understand these well. And then it goes back to being closer to like 15 to 20 lessons for homework. Okay, so for today, yeah, you were supposed to have done these here. So I'll go through some of this content quickly and just kind of give an overview of some of it, not all of it. But are there any questions, like specific questions that anybody had about anything from the homework before I jump in?
I've got a quick question.
Yes. Woo! Please, what do you got?
Yeah, I figured I'd go ahead and just dive in head first. So zero-based indexing, kind of on the module where we were using bracket notation to find the nth to last character in a string.
Yeah.
So zero-based indexing doesn't apply, I guess, like in reverse. Is that correct?
You mean like, so when you say reverse, what do you mean? Do you mean like negative numbers?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so I never ever use negative numbers personally. And like if I'm accessing an array, or I think in this case it would have been more about accessing like these lessons where you're accessing a particular character in the string. Is that kind of what are you referring to? I mean, they both kind of work the same, but are you referring to the array part or the string part, or both with what you're talking about?
I guess to both, because to me, it's just like, okay, zero-based indexing. So first letter, zero, like that's pretty easy. I just figured it would have applied in reverse as well. So like last letter would be zero, but well, I guess actually I just answered my own question because you can't really do a negative zero.
Right. So can you guys, yeah, so I just opened up, like if you're ever wanting to just do some quick JavaScript, like you can just open the console in any browser tab, which I think is really kind of fun. So I've opened up the console here, and then I just have a test word like OKCoders. So yeah, if we do test word 0, like you said, that's the first letter. And that's just something that you're never going to get used to for some, like I've never gotten used to it. You always are going to be doing this weird like mental gymnastic whenever you're taking like length of something and then thinking about the zero-based index stuff. And so you constantly will see like length -1 and stuff like that. And you'll just get used to it because like length of this word is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? So if you ask for the length of the word, which is something that you guys saw in the homework, it'll give you back 8. But if you want the last letter, like that index is what? So if a string is 8 characters, what index would be the last character in that string? Is there any brave souls?
7.
7. Yeah, very good. So like you'll constantly see if you want the last character in this. So test word is the variable where I stored OKCoders. And then if I want to get the S, like what I can do is ask for the length of that variable, like the length of the string that's stored in that variable, and then subtract 1 to then get. So that's how we get the last character, or like the last item in an array often is with this sort of format like that. But yeah, you can do like negative base indexing stuff. Honestly, I never do it. Or
Yeah, you can't in JavaScript actually.
Okay, cool.
There are certain methods, or there are certain string and array methods that do take negative indexes. but you can't do it directly.
Okay, yeah, because right, it's just giving me undefined because there's oh, I stepped on my dog.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so this is actually trying to access a slot at -1, and there's just nothing there. And so this is giving back, it's not even giving an error, which often JavaScript will give you back something when ideally, or like not ideally, but in other languages, it would have given you an error probably. In this case, it's just giving back undefined. So Jonas, like, where did you see did you just kind of assume the negative index thing would work, or have you like used another language where that is a thing?
No, I answered my own question because to me, I was thinking, okay, if it works, if it starts at 0 when you do a negative, it should start at 0, not realizing like -0 isn't a number at all. So
Yeah, yeah, gotcha.
The other confusing bit though is that there actually is a -0 in JavaScript. I don't know what it does. I've never used it, but if you type -0, you actually do get -0.
Oh,
Doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but it does exist, which makes this even more confusing.
-0, yeah, equals 0. Sorry, so what you guys just saw here is something we get to, I can look it up. We don't get to that till the pre-work for day 6. But there's like a way to compare things and like ask if things equal each other. And that's this double equals. So equals is like assignment, and then double equals is like equals, like does this equal this? And then it tells you, it gives you a Boolean for the answer. So it says yes or no. So this statement here is saying, does -0 equal 0? And the language is saying yes, true, it does. Which is funny. There's a lot of like oddities with JavaScript that people make fun of, and this is probably a great example here. Okay, any other, like, I guess, yeah, okay, so I think we answered that question.
Zach, there's one thing that I would add just that's really been helpful for me, which is when I have an array or a string and I'm confused about the zero-based indexing, it's harder to do in the console, but if you open the sources tab and just like opened a little code thing, I just put it there and then I just visually write out the indexes underneath. And that way I know which one I'm dealing with. So if I'm really stuck with indexes, that's what I'll do. And just being able to visualize what index I'm dealing with is really helpful for me for whatever reason.
Okay, hold on, let me, so you were saying you would like do what exactly? Like you would
just even in a comment underneath, just put, okay, O is 0, K is 1, space is 3 or 2, even getting confused, even just saying it. Yeah, just put spaces between them. Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
So sometimes it's as simple as just like seeing that those numbers are there and that they correspond. And that helps me understand whatever part I'm stuck on.
Wait, now I'm confused.
You were counting the variable name before, not the string.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow, okay. Oh yeah, because there was no space in that. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's helpful. Yeah, so here's the string, and then we've added let me zoom in a little bit, the different indexes for each character within the string. Okay, oh, and then my code formatter jacked it up. Okay, any other questions? Cool, yeah. Okay, so you guys, I'm gonna skip this compound assignment stuff. But you guys looked at strings and then escaping certain characters in strings. So I want to talk about that for just a second. So often you'll be maybe trying to create some sort of message for your user. So maybe there's like a success message or an error message that you want to display to them, and you're crafting what that message is going to be in your code. And so like you actually, have to have a string for it. So you're saying, message, or let's say success message. And you then are like crafting that message, and you may want to like combine variables into the string to have like the user's name and things like that. But occasionally you'll like want to use a particular character. So let's say you were using, no, let's just stick with this. So you want to have a message, and that message is like, hey, the response from I don't know, the response from the boss was, and then like you might want to like put something in quotes, like you'll want to say like this is a quote from somebody. And so you'd be like, okay, well, I'm going to put like quote, and then you are doing such a good job. So that's the boss. Maybe this is like maybe this isn't a success message, but like some sort of like app for work communication. And there's like moments where you can give somebody feedback or like give them like a thumbs up because they've been doing a good job. And so they want to put the message as like from somebody, like in quotes. So you're wanting this particular part to be in quotes. And you'll notice like my text editor is like freaking out. So I've got like, here's the start of the string, here's the end of the string, and then here are my quotes. And it just like, you can already tell there's something wrong. And if I like open this up in the browser, we're actually getting an error here in this case. So I've got this HTML file and I went live, and then there's actually no HTML, there's just the script tag. So then I have that page open, I open the JavaScript console, and you can see uncaught syntax error, unexpected identifier. So you guys will get errors in your code all the time, and you'll want to read the error and then look at, like, errors are helpful. So the error is saying unexpected identifier, and then it's saying, hey, that happened on line 12. So that's what this little thing is here, telling me the file name and the code line in the file. So I'm going to go, okay, line 12, there's something wrong on this line. And then my text editor is, pretty fancy. And it's also telling me that I'm trying to close this. Yeah. It's also telling me there's an error, and it's like, hey, here it is. Like these red little squiggly lines are like, hey, this is messed up. And then sometimes it'll give you an error message. And in this case, this isn't super helpful. It's saying it expected a comma. I don't know why it's necessarily saying that. So the issue here is that the double quote is how you designate to the JavaScript language that you're defining a string. And so the way that the language reads this line here is, okay, hey, you're starting a string here, and then you're ending it here. And then it's like, I don't know what you're trying to do here. It looks like you might be trying to define or use a variable. And I wasn't expecting that. And then you have like a space, and then there's like other things I don't understand. So if we want to use this character in the string itself, the double quote, we can either what's called escape it, or what you often see people do is they just switch to use single quote for that particular string or for that variable you're defining. So this, in this case, is okay because I'm defining my string with single quotes. And so I start the single quote here, and then I end the single quote here. And then it's totally fine with these double quotes in this scenario. So when we go back here, we don't have an error message anymore. And if I console log the success message, we get a nice string with the quotes like we want. So that's one way to do it, but that only works if the character you're trying to use is a double quote. And so there's like a more robust way to handle what's called escaping any particular character that you want to use that's not allowed within that particular context. And so does anybody remember what that is, the character for that that was in the homework?
The slash.
Yeah. And in this case, I think backslash is what it's called. So yeah, this you can actually, and you can see the text editor kind of giving me color changes that are like making me confident that I did the right thing. So if we put this backslash, that's called the escape character, and it knows to interpret whatever's next as just the text version of that thing, not the like code version of that thing. And so if I do that, I just need to do it in two spots here because I have two quotes that I want to escape. And so I think this is also now a valid version of that string. And so you can see I get the same result here. I don't have an error, and then I have the double quotes like I wanted. Now, if you wanted to use an actual literal backtick in your string, then you would escape that backtick like that. So that might have given you like a head trip or something, but if you want, like it may be a perfectly valid sentence that uses this for some reason, or you want to use it in your string. And so you can also escape that character as well. So yeah, that is escape sequences and strings. You guys should be familiar. We've already done a decent amount of concatenating strings together with plus, and then you guys have also seen the backtick. Oh, so if we switched to using, let me just do like a quick quiz here. If we switched this string to use backticks, what characters can you think of? Like, so instead of doing double quotes, if we had changed this to using the backtick style, what do you think we would have to escape that we typically use whenever we use backticks?
Is it an apostrophe?
I don't think so. I'm actually like honestly blanking on what an apostrophe is at the moment. No, so single quote would be okay. You'd be able to use single quotes.
I think single quote and apostrophe are the same thing, aren't they?
Yeah, they're the same thing.
Okay,
But
yeah.
backticks also do look like a single quote apostrophe.
Yeah, yeah. But like whenever we're using backticks, what do we often use with it whenever we switch to using backticks?
The $$ and then the curly braces.
Yeah, exactly. So if, yeah, we typically want to use backticks to do like injecting variables into the string. So that was the answer. The $ and the curly brace is something you would have to, if you wanted to use them, not as the code injecting part, but like if you wanted to use those actual characters, you would have to escape them. Because like the language is expecting those to mean a particular thing, right? Which is us injecting some sort of variable. So like we would do, if I wanted to inject OKCoders into this from this variable up here, I would do it like this, right? But if for some reason I, wanted money from somebody, give me money. Well, actually, that's going to work just fine. It's only in the context of, let me go ahead and log this. Yeah, so $, by itself works fine. It's only whenever we want to do $, and then the like it's doing some auto, damn it. Sorry, like my code, whenever I save, will like try to auto format the document for me, and it's like getting rid of that space that's right there. But you can see here, if we wanted to use the $ and the curly brace, it's not going to work. And so I think we would have to do this. Yeah, so the $ by itself is okay, but it's when you have $ curly, and so I'm escaping the curly in this case. So the curly brace is the only thing that you need to escape in this context. Okay, we got a very funky looking string here. Okay. All right, cool. And we saw the bracket notation for finding the nth character in the string. So that's that index-based lookup of a particular character in the string. And we also saw this length property. So I want to talk about that for a minute, because there's actually a lot to learn just with that one example. So we saw that we can do we can have a string, and when we're dealing with a string, we can ask for the size of the string. So like how many characters are in it, and that's the length property. So we can access that property, and we can assign that to a variable. And then I'm going to console log that. So that is 9 characters, the OKCoders string with a space in it. And we saw that we can also, as long as we are making sure we know how long the string is, we can access any particular character within it. So we can access, the 5th character in that string if we want to, which is D. But if we go too far, like, so this was, the length of this was 9. So we asked for 10. Does anybody have a guess for what this will give back?
A space?
In this case, is undefined. So remember when we did -1, we also got undefined then. So yeah, often if you ask for something that's not there in JavaScript, it will give you undefined. Okay, so this right here is a really important thing to kind of grasp. So I have a string. Oh, I should have used test string. I just used the one that was up there. So we have a variable test string here that I defined on line 18, and that the contents of that is a string. And so given that I'm dealing with that primitive type, so I'm dealing with a string primitive type. We talked about some of the primitive types last time: number, string, Boolean. So given that I'm dealing with that, there's certain things that I can do and access with that type. And so you probably have noticed there's been many cases where we've had something and then we put dot right after it. So like we'll have some sort of variable and we'll put a dot and then we'll put some other word after it. So like we do that with console, right? So we do console.log. And for the length, we did name of the variable dot length. So the dot is a special character in JavaScript that you do to say, I want to access a property on this thing. So numbers have it, strings have it, and then other what are called objects have the ability for you to access this properties on that thing with the dot notation. So console is an example of a special type of object. So how do we know what we can type? So if I just did test string dot, like how do I know what I'm allowed to type here? So VS Code will actually try to help you here. So whenever I put dot, it's then giving me a bunch of different options for what I can type at this point. So what are the different properties and what's called methods that I can use with a string? So one way to find out is just to kind of like scroll through this list. But this list here, or like this window popping up, is really more for you kind of know what you want, but you just can't remember the exact name potentially. And it also just kind of speeds up typing. So like I know I want length, so I can hit tab and then it completes it for me. But if you're inexperienced, how would you know like what those things are and what you can do with them? So anytime you don't know something, there's typically documentation for it. And so what we can do is we can look up the string. So I'm going to type JavaScript string documentation. So I don't know why it's giving me slice right away, but MDN, the Mozilla Developer Network website, is typically a good spot for documentation. So I'm going to go here and then I can just go to the like root of the string documentation. So let me go ahead and post this in Slack real quick for you all. Oh, cool, Woody. I just don't know why you would ever need to do that though. You know, like you just like, I don't know. Okay, so I just posted the docs for string. And so this kind of just gives you like a nice little overview. Like this is like a quick tutorial here for the content that's in the middle of the page. And here's Woody's example that he was just talking about. But the more interesting thing is the stuff on the left here. So these are the properties available to us, and on a string, length is the only property. And then there's methods, and we can do like, there's anything that you will ever need to do with a string, there's a method for it. and you can find it here. So you can just kind of peruse through this list and just see all the different things that you can possibly do with a string. So does anybody see one that strikes their fancy? Come on, some of these look pretty cool.
What does replace all do?
Cool. All right, love it. Yeah. All right. So replace all. So it will replace all the different matches of a pattern in a string with whatever you want to replace it with. Wow. Wait, so I actually was going to talk about this one in the lesson. Did you like look at did this one actually interest you?
No, I just saw it next to replace. I was like, replace all, why not?
Okay, cool. Because I was actually going to talk about this one. So that's what a little coincidence. So yeah, so here's their example. It's pretty helpful. So they have a sentence here. The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. And so they assign that string to P, the variable P, which perfectly valid variable name, like just one letter. That's okay. And they then do P dot replace all. And so this is saying replace all dog with monkey. And so when you call this method, it's going to modify that string and return to you a new string. So this one here stayed the same. Like, so it didn't modify the original string, but it created a new one and then returns that to you. And so they just immediately console log that result. And so you can see the output is anytime that there was dog, it's replaced with monkey. So you can see monkey here. So that's pretty helpful. So the example I was going to do for our exercise is, so there's replace and then there's replace all. Replace all means that, like, I think replace will just do it for the first one it finds. So if you say replace dog with monkey, it'll only do it the first time it finds something. And then I'm guessing replace all does it for every instance of that word that you're looking for. But let me double check that. Yeah, so if you just give it dog when you're using replace, it's only going to replace the first one that it finds. And you can that's just in the documentation here. So if pattern is a string, only the first occurrence will be replaced. Yeah, so that's pretty helpful. And so a use case is, like, maybe you're making like a chat application and kids are using it, and so you don't want them to put curse words in the chat. And so you can have like a dictionary of curse words, and then just like anytime they type something, just replace any curse words with, whatever you want to replace it with. So, and then what's nice about this is, so let's say we've got, let's do that example. So let's say we have const chat message, and I'm a kid, I have a potty mouth, poop or something. So this isn't a real curse word, but let's say we want to get rid of poop. So you can see we've got currently we've got the potty mouth going through the chat. And if we want to fix that, we can say const cleaned message equals chat message dot. So I'm going to start doing, oh, that's interesting. They don't have replace all in VS Code as like something it thought would be there. Oh, and it thinks it's like jQuery. That's funny. So this is an example where like VS Code's kind of telling me something different than the documentation online told me. Let's just see what happens whenever we use it. So we'll replace all poop with, now you may choose like a different word, but you can also, if you just want to like get rid of something, like just get rid of that text, you can just give it an empty string. And so that's just going to get rid of it. And then so I can console log cleaned message and see what we get. Yeah. So now we have, I'm a kid, I have a potty mouth, comma, and then nothing else. Well, the space is still there, but then these 4 characters are gone. Yeah, so there's a ton of stuff that you can do. There's a ton of methods available to you to do various things with a string. So you can ask, like, does a string start with something? Or this probably ends with 2. Yeah, you can ask if a string ends with something. You can take a particular part of a string. And that's what substring is. So you can ask for like, oh, that's deprecated. I wonder what they recommend now. So if you ever heard deprecate,
Zach, there's a substring. SUBSTR is deprecated, but substring is not.
okay. So when you hear the term deprecated, that means, hey, this thing is still there, because removing it would like break a bunch of people's code. So it's still there, but stop using it. So like prefer this other thing. And like eventually, like in later versions of JavaScript, this won't be there anymore. So yeah, so we'll find, yeah, so basically they were like, hey, why the hell did we not just use the full name? I'm guessing. And so they replaced it with substring. So yeah, what this will let you do is say, hey, using the indexes, give me back like a range within the string. So this is saying from the 1th to the 3rd index, give me that. So remember, you start with 0. So this would be O and Z. And this is exclusive, so it doesn't include so there's like inclusive and exclusive. So 0, 1, 2, 3 would be I. And it's exclusive, meaning go up to, but not including this index. And then if you just give it 1 character, oh, I guess that will start at the character that you give it and then do the rest of the string. So yeah, that's just a few examples of different methods available to you on a string. Any questions about any of that?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, say I wanted to replace all, like multiple words in that string, one word. Could I
Yeah.
do that in the same string line? Or do I need to like make a second one?
Yeah.
That's other specific thing.
Yeah, good question. And that's like an obvious use case, especially like if you're trying to remove curse words, like kids are going to use more than one curse word, you know? So with replace all, now this is more advanced than what we can talk about now. But I'm guessing people would probably use what's called a regular expression, which would allow you to sort of say like this or this or this. A more hacky way to do it is like you can actually like chain, like so you could use it, assign it to a variable, and then use that new variable and then assign that to a new variable. But you can also like chain calling things. So like when this code runs, when it's evaluated, it turns into a string. And so I can just immediately use replace all again on it and get rid of an additional word. So you can see like I'm like chaining like the calls to this. That's a little hacky. Like I wouldn't want that method. Ideally, let me see what's in here. Yeah, so I think you'd probably use the regular expression. Yeah, so there's a one way to do it. I'm just looking up what other people suggest. There's one way to do it with looping, it looks like, potentially. But that's a little more advanced, and we'll get to that later. I think probably the regular expression might be the best way. And for that, man, it's been a hot minute since I've had to write a regular expression. But I think this might work. Yeah, okay. So yeah, you guys don't need to understand this quite yet. There's like a whole world of a thing you'd have to learn that takes a long time called regular expressions, which is like a way to pattern match strings. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm saying, hey, match poop or potty. And replace that. And so that's working, but I think people would probably go with the more advanced example with looping. So maybe I can just try to remember to show you guys that once we get to it. But yeah, valid question. There's definitely a solution to it. It's just a little more advanced than where we are right now. Any other questions? Okay, sweet. So we'll spend the rest of our 15 minutes just kind of doing a like more real world example. So you guys did a free code camp thing where they kind of had like a Mad Lib, like word blank kind of thing. So I figured we'd try and build something like that, but using prompts like we've been using from last class. And then kudos to a few individuals that posted their extensions of the exercise we ended class with last time. So a few people figured out like how to have the prompt not block the HTML from showing up. And then somebody, I think it was, yeah, Gia, showed like having a button that you actually press to then have the prompts show up. So you can like get to the site and then say like, renew license, and then it'll do the prompting for you. So yeah, we can set up our Mad Lib to be like that. So we'll start with, so we're gonna want a button. And this will say, you know, play Mad Lib. And then I'm going to give this, sit down real quick. Oh man, you guys have been like blowing up the chat. Hey, I actually recommend using Slack for any chat, just because then it's like once we close the Zoom, you're not gonna be able to see any of the chat from it. So I'd recommend using Slack just so we can like save it and be able to reference it later. Okay, so we're gonna have a button on our page. And then to be able to like attach any sort of functionality to the button in our JavaScript, there's a few ways to do it, but often you'll see someone add an ID. So we're gonna give an ID to this button, and this, we just need to decide what we want the ID to be. So it can be like play. I feel like people typically use hyphens in HTML. So we're giving this an ID, which is play button. So we've got a button, and let's just verify that the page looks how we want so far. Yep. So we've got our button, but it just doesn't do anything quite yet when you click on it. So if we want to attach some sort of functionality to that button, we can get that button from the page. Does anybody know the way that we do that? So I'm going to do something like this. Does anybody know what I type here? So like, how do I get an element from the HTML by ID?
Would it just be get element by ID?
Yeah, yeah. And then what's the, so the method, that's correct. So the method's get element by ID, but like, what is that method defined on?
Document.
Yeah, wait, who was that? Who was that?
It's Gian.
Oh, okay. I thought it was someone in the background with Dylan. Okay, yeah. So document is correct. And then you're seeing this dot notation again. So dot get element by ID. And so VS Code's being helpful and finishing that for me. So document.get element by ID, and then that takes a string for like the ID that we want to find. And it's play button is what I used up here. So I have to type that exactly the same in order for it to find it correctly. So yeah, that should be getting our play button. And then we want to respond whenever someone clicks on it. So we do play button dot but I have to look this up. I think it's like add event listener. Yeah. So honestly, if I didn't know exactly what to do, which I sort of half don't, I would be Googling it. And so I would say like, you know, add or respond to click of button JavaScript or something like that, and see what kind of results I get. You're often going to see jQuery, which is like this old library everybody used before Angular and React and view and stuff like that. And so like once you guys learn React, which is module 4, it pretty much covers all use cases you would need. So I want like the plain JavaScript style because we're not using jQuery. So I'm just gonna add plain. Yeah, okay. Okay, cool. So here's document.get element by ID, which we've done. There's like straight up like an on-click property, I guess. But what I was thinking of is this event listener thing. So yeah, here they give an example of an event listener. So we can do, so here you can also see them doing the same thing, document.get element by ID. And then add event listener click. And then this, another advanced thing that we haven't quite learned yet. So just sort of hand wave on what a function is at the moment. But here's sort of the syntax to say like, here's the code I want to run in response to someone clicking on this element. So that's how you would read that code. So that's the style I want to do. I don't know, actually, this is honestly a little bit cleaner, but anyways, there's often more than one way to do something. So we're going to do it this way. So add event listener of click, and then this is that hand wave. Don't worry about what this is exactly at this moment, but just know that essentially any code in between line 33 and 35 is what's going to run when someone clicks. And this is just sort of the syntax for how you set that up. And so let me just do console log play mad lib. And just, I want to like, so often when you're setting something up, you'll kind of want to check and see if it's working as you go. Like you don't want to just like code for 2 hours and then be like, okay, does it work? Like you'll want to like do something and then check and then do something and check and just sort of iteratively create your program. So I'm at a good stopping point where I just want to see, am I correctly finding the button? And then when I click on the button, do I get console log play madlib? So let's go back to that. And okay, very cool. So I clicked the button and then I got play madlib, and then you can see, hey, that was line 34. So you can see, yeah, whenever I click that button, line 34 is running, which is what we expect. So what do we want to do here? Well, we want to, prompt them for what the input they want to do, like what that will be. So we also need like a sentence that they're going to inject verbs into and adjectives into. So I don't know, we'll probably want to like, so right now we'll just play in the console, but eventually we can like update the page to have like to play actually on the page rather than having them open the console by like updating the text and updating what the page looks like with JavaScript. So we'll say play madlib. Here is your sentence. Okay. And then we'll want to do first word equals prompt. First word. Okay, now I want to give them their Mad Lib sentence. So how do you guys think I should do that? Should I use a normal string or should I use a backtick string?
Use the backtick string and then inject the words that they're going to type in.
Good, yeah. So I'll just copy this string and do backticks. And then, yeah, instead of these blanks here, we'll do first word and second word. Okay, let's see how our program is. So play Mad Lib. Play Mad Lib. Here's your sentence. OKCoders is the blank class I've ever taken is so blank. So first word, boring. Slowest, I don't know, maybe fastest class I've ever taken. It is so hard but rewarding. Cool. Okay. So we played, it worked. And this is like a perfect example here where like, hey, we're taking user input. They can type whatever they want, but really we want them to just give us one word, right? Maybe two is okay. So this is an example where we just saw like replace all or replace might be helpful because like an exclamation point is not valid, right? And we already had an exclamation point at the end. And so they sort of like added one, like an additional one, and they also have one in the middle of the sentence. So like we could have like cleaned their input. So we could have said, replace any punctuation or potentially like only take the first word, like if there's any spaces in it, which is another thing that you can do. With all the different methods available to you on string. So yeah, we have a working program, but like a V2 of our program might be to clean up some of the input to make sure that it conforms to what we're trying to create. So yeah, we just wrapped up like perfect timing on ending that little example. So we're done with class. And as I mentioned, like I'll typically try to end right on time on Wednesdays, and then I'll typically go over on Saturdays. So yeah, that's everything for today. But if anybody has any questions or anything, I can go ahead and go over those now with just for a minute. No questions? Okay. All right, so homework is I'll push this code up, play around with it. So there's the button, and then there's the existing stuff we have. There's a lot of ways that this could be better. So you can have, more than one, like more than two slots. You could maybe, I don't know, have more than one sentence that you can play. So the game you can play longer. You could try to figure out some way to like not duplicate the prompt that shows them what it's going to be, and then like the one that fills in. Like notice that there's like some duplication on line 36 and 39, or like I've like got like sort of the same thing twice. Like there might be a way to get rid of that. And yeah, anything else you guys can think of with your creative brains of like how you can make this program better. So play around with that, tweak that. You can also try to update the page instead of console logging if you wanted to try that. I haven't taught you guys that, but you may just like look up like how do you add HTML and text to a page with JavaScript and just see where that takes you. So yeah, try and tweak this. That's sort of like bonus extra, but at minimum, make sure that you do pre-work for day 4, which is listed here. Cool. Thank you, everybody. And yeah, I hope to see all of you guys that can make it in class on Saturday.
Thank you.
Thank you.